Let me tell you, Gene Kelly was one of a kind. That fellow was a dancer with real athletic power, the kind that completely changed the movie musical forever. He took what folks thought a man should look like on the dance floor and turned it upside down. No more just elegant and fancy like Fred Astaire. Gene brought muscle, energy, and pure American spirit to every step. He was a performer like no other. But here's the thing that always makes me smile a little. Why was everyone so afraid of Gene Kelly? Gene Kelly didn't run away from his secrets, and the making of Singin' in the Rain sure proved that. This man starred in some of the most beloved classic movie musicals ever made. Singin' in the Rain, Anchors Aweigh, On the Town, and An American in Paris. After World War II, Gene became the living symbol of American hope and optimism. He wasn't some polished gentleman in a fancy tuxedo. No, sir. He danced in a simple white t-shirt, showing off real muscle and athletic strength that felt fresh, energetic, and completely American. His style was worlds apart from the smooth, elegant top hat and tails dancing that Fred Astaire made famous. But here's the thing many people don't talk about as much. Behind all that gymnastic energy and big, happy smile was a fiercely competitive man with a huge ego and a very sharp temper. As a choreographer, he was already demanding, but as a director, he could be downright tough. A lot of people who worked with him wondered the same thing we still ask today. Was Gene Kelly actually a real jerk sometimes? Athletic, full of fire, and bursting with life, Gene Kelly was the clear king of Hollywood musicals all through the 1940s and 1950s. He didn't just appear in some of the genre's biggest hits, he worked behind the camera too, pushing boundaries with his choreography and direction. Most of us old-timers still remember him best for his starring role in Singin' in the Rain. Many folks, including me, still believe it's the greatest dance movie ever put on film. Gene had a special gift. He mixed powerful solo dancing with big group movements and clever, unusual camera angles to tell whole stories using almost nothing but pure movement and visuals. The man could truly do it all. He was an actor, a singer, a choreographer, a producer, and above everything else, one incredible dancer. His dancing style was a strong combination of classical ballet technique and raw, powerful athleticism. More than just about anyone else in his time, he changed how ordinary Americans thought about male dancers. Thanks to Gene, it became perfectly fine for a strong, masculine man to dance with power and joy. He danced with a cartoon mouse, performed on roller skates, tapped, jumped, and twirled across the screen like it was nothing. But the moment everyone remembers most is that iconic umbrella dance in the pouring rain from the 1952 film Singin' in the Rain. That one scene alone changed movie musicals forever. One of 5 children, Gene Kelly was born on August 23, 1912, and grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His father, who had Irish, Canadian, and German roots, made a steady living selling phonographs door to door. But his mother had much bigger dreams for Gene and his brothers. Born into a large Irish Catholic family, young Gene attended Catholic school and for a long time saw himself as a good Catholic boy. That changed dramatically during a trip to Mexico in 1939. Seeing the huge wealth of the church right next to the terrible poverty of the people shook him to his core and made him question almost everything he had been taught growing up. When he was just 8 years old, his mother signed both him and his brother up for dance lessons. At first, they hated it and fought her every step of the way. The neighborhood boys teased them without mercy, calling the Kelly brothers sissies, which led to lots of fistfights. But Gene was always a tremendous natural athlete. He played football, baseball, and gymnastics seriously. By the time he turned 15, he had developed real skills in other sports and could easily defend himself from both teasing and physical challenges on the street. He even played hockey at a semi-professional level. Interestingly, he later said that hockey actually helped shape his wide, low-to-the-ground dance style. Who would have thought hockey and dancing could mix so well? He was also quite good on the baseball field and dreamed of one day playing for his hometown team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. His mother, however, was the true arts lover in the family. She kept pushing him toward dance. Gene wanted to quit many times because he hated the teasing, but then he made one important discovery that changed everything. Girls really loved a boy who could dance. Although his youngest brother Fred seemed to take to dancing more naturally and quickly, young Gene still joined in with the whole family. His mother put together a little amateur act called the Five Kellys, and all 5 siblings performed together. They traveled around doing vaudeville shows throughout the 1920s, putting on small routines in theaters and halls wherever they could get booked. It was a modest start, but it gave Gene his first real taste of performing in front of an audience. In 1928, the family took a bigger step and opened their very own dance academy. For a while, things looked promising for the Kelly boys. Gene appeared to be heading toward a bright future. But then the stock market crashed in 1929, and the Great Depression hit hard. Everything changed almost overnight. Gene had been studying journalism at Penn State, but money became tight, so he was forced to transfer back home to the University of Pittsburgh to save on expenses. To help keep himself in school, he took whatever odd jobs he could find. He worked as a soda jerk at a fountain and as a carpenter's helper, doing whatever it took to scrape together enough cash. While attending the University of Pittsburgh, Gene put his dancing skills to good use. At 19, he started teaching alongside his brother Fred at the family's dance school. In his free time, he'd slip out to nightclubs, catch every movie musical playing in town, and attend vaudeville performances. He studied the routines carefully so he could bring fresh steps and ideas back to his students. As Gene's reputation as a teacher grew, his proud mother decided to rename the studio the Gene Kelly School of Dance. It turned out to be a smart move that helped the business. Teaching brought in steady money, but deep down, it wasn't enough for Gene. He had bigger ambitions. He wanted to create his own choreography, try his hand at directing, and really master the art of ballet. That's why he began attending summer classes at the Chicago Association of Dancing Masters. The instructors there quickly spotted his natural talent and soon asked him to teach some of the classes himself. He was clearly on his way. Still, Gene wasn't fully satisfied. He even gave law school a try, but after just 2 months, he knew it wasn't for him. He made the decision to focus completely on performing and teaching dance full-time. Over time, though, he grew to dislike teaching more and more. Too many students were dropping out, and the work started to feel limiting. So, at the age of 16, he finally packed his bags and headed to New York City, hungry to find real work in choreography and professional performance. In 1938, Gene Kelly packed up and moved to New York City with big dreams in his pocket. He landed a spot in the chorus of Cole Porter's Broadway show, Leave It to Me. He didn't stay in the background for long. Gene stood out strongly in the big, show-stopping number, My Heart Belongs to Daddy, dancing right alongside the star, Mary Martin. That performance really turned heads. Pretty soon, Hollywood came calling. Film producer David O. Selznick offered him a movie contract, and Gene accepted right away. What made it even sweeter was that Selznick didn't even ask him to do a screen test, something pretty unusual in those days. 6 months later, his contract was sold to MGM, and that's where Gene would stay and work for the next 16 years of his career. He made his film debut opposite the young Judy Garland in For Me and My Gal. Audiences took to him immediately. They loved his carefree acting style and that spontaneous, athletic way he danced. It felt fresh and full of life. But it wasn't until he was loaned out to Columbia Pictures to co-star with Rita Hayworth in the musical Cover Girl that Gene finally got the chance to bring his own special artistic vision to the big screen. Before Gene Kelly arrived on the scene, Hollywood movie musicals had basically fallen into 2 main categories. On one side, you had the big, splashy, over-the-top extravaganzas filled with dozens of girls that Busby Berkeley loves to create, all glitter and grand spectacle. On the other side were the more intimate, personality-driven pictures that Fred Astaire made so elegant and personal. Gene cleverly bridged the gap between those 2 worlds. In Cover Girl, He pulled off something truly memorable with the famous alter ego number. Using carefully timed special effects, he danced a lively challenge routine with himself, two Gene Kellys going head-to-head on screen. It was groundbreaking. Then, in Anchors Away, he introduced another fun innovation by dancing with Jerry, the animated cartoon mouse from the Tom and Jerry cartoons. And in The Pirate, he staged one of his first full-filmed ballets, boldly mixing solo dancing, large group movements, unusual camera angles, and vibrant colors to tell an entire story using almost nothing but pure visuals. From that point on, Gene carved out a completely unique style for himself in the booming world of movie musicals. He once explained his approach this way: "I create what the drama and the music demand." He loved ballet technique and was 100% for it, but he never let perfect technique get in the way of real mood or smooth storytelling. On screen, Gene often played confident, brash fellows who believed the quickest way to get what they wanted was to impress everyone around them. But almost every time, the character would eventually realize that his cocky attitude actually offended people, and he would do better by simply being himself. And yet, almost everyone who worked with him was secretly afraid of Gene Kelly. He co-directed Singin' in the Rain and created all the dance routines himself. Even Donald O'Connor later admitted that Gene's intense focus on perfection made the set very tense. Donald said he was terrified during the first few weeks of filming, scared to death of making even the smallest mistake and getting yelled at by the leading man. Debbie Reynolds really bore the brunt of Gene's aggressive and demanding methods during the filming of Singin' in the Rain. At just 19 years old, Debbie was still living with her parents when she was chosen as Gene's leading lady. Every morning, she would leave the house at 4 a.m. and take 3 different buses across town just to reach the studio on time. Some nights, she was so completely worn out that she skipped the long trip home and simply slept overnight right there on the set. Years later, she openly said that finishing that movie and surviving childbirth were 2 of the hardest things she had ever gone through in her life. At the same time, she admitted she learned a tremendous amount from him through that long, painful process. Gene pushed everyone hard, including Donald O'Connor. He asked Donald to bring back one of his old signature moves from his younger vaudeville days, running full speed toward a wall and doing a big somersault off it. By then, Donald was smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day, which made the whole thing much more difficult and exhausting. He agreed anyway. After performing the stunt, he ended up needing a full week of rest because of total exhaustion and painful carpet burns all over his body. His bad luck didn't stop there. All the initial footage of that scene was later lost in an accident, so poor Donald had to do the entire painful routine all over again from scratch. Debbie didn't escape the punishment either. After filming the complicated and energetic choreography for the Good Morning number, she suffered burst blood vessels in both her feet. The pain was so bad that she had to be carried off the set to her dressing room to recover. But Gene, being the ultimate perfectionist he was, still wasn't satisfied. He decided that her tap sounds weren't quite good enough for the final cut, so he went into the studio and dubbed his own crisp tapping over hers. Gene was every bit as tough on himself as he was on the rest of the cast. Despite running a dangerous 103-degree fever, he refused to go home. The director kept begging him to rest, but Gene was adamant. He insisted on running through take after take of the famous Singin' in the Rain scene. When things still weren't right, he even improvised new choreography right there on the spot, and that last-minute version is exactly what ended up in the finished film. There's no question that Gene Kelly put Debbie Reynolds through absolute hell during the making of Singin' in the Rain. She had been trained as a gymnast, not a professional dancer, yet Gene would drill her relentlessly on the choreography, forcing her to repeat the same steps hour after hour until she was ready to drop. That's where Fred Astaire found her. Seeing how distressed the young actress was, he did something very rare. He invited her to watch him practice one of his own routines, something he almost never allowed anyone to see. As she watched the legendary dancer huffing and puffing, sweating through every difficult step, She realized just how much hard work it really took. That moment gave her the strength and courage to carry on. Jean's widow, Patricia Ward Kelly, later explained her husband's approach. He always designed the routines to suit whatever partner he was working with, whether they were seasoned professionals or not. Jean used to say, "You choreograph to the woman." So he shaped every movement around Debbie's actual abilities and limitations. His goal was always to make his partner look as good as she possibly could. And Debbie worked like a trooper. She pushed through the pain and exhaustion and eventually became a big star because of it. Over time, Reynolds developed a perspective of real gratitude for everything Jean had put her through. She came to believe that the difficult experience made her a much stronger and better performer. Still, the exacting director himself later admitted with some regret, "I wasn't very nice to Debbie. I'm surprised she still speaks to me." Gene Kelly passed away in 1996 at the age of 83. He had been married 3 times and was the father of 3 children. True to his independent nature, right to the end, he specifically requested that there be no funeral services. And so, one of Hollywood's most celebrated and influential entertainers quietly faded away, without any formal goodbye from family or friends. Even now, many years later, young dancers and choreographers around the world still study Gene's impressive style and technique. They watch his films carefully and try to capture that same combination of power, athleticism, and pure joy that he brought to every performance. He showed such tremendous passion and enthusiasm for the world of dance and performing arts that his influence is still felt today. Gene Kelly has gone down in history as one of America's greatest and most beloved entertainers. His legacy continues to bring a smile to the faces of movie fans everywhere, reminding us of a golden time when Hollywood musicals could lift your spirits and make your heart feel lighter. If you enjoyed this look back at his life and career, I'd appreciate it if you'd give the video a thumbs up. It really helps. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss future stories about the golden age of Hollywood. And if you'd like to support the channel and see more in-depth videos like this one, you're always welcome to visit my Patreon page. Every bit of support means a lot. Now it's your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Gene Kelly? He was a perfectionist through and through, sometimes a real maniac when it came to getting things right. There's no denying he had a temper, but there's also no denying that he was a true legend who changed the face of dance in the movies forever. Go ahead and drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one.